very short session. Okay, perfect. So today's topic, folks, is the unlocking of SAP integration with the Dataiku platform. We've got quite a nice agenda for you this afternoon. If we just take a look at the contents here. So we'll start with some very brief introductions. The only purpose really is to get mine and Ian's faces up on screen for 30 seconds. But we're doing a quick introduction to ourselves. Then we've got some nice demos revolving around the connectivity of, in this session today, 3 core SAP systems with Dataiku. SAP system, SAP ECC, the outgoing ERP product from SAP, SAP BW, the data warehouse used within the SAP environment by a lot of customers still, and SAP S/4HANA, the current ERP product. So we'll show these things, do some nice demos for you. We've got 4 nice demos. One of them revolving around SAP transaction code data. So if some of you I see already from names on the call here today, that you'll be familiar with our products for Alteryx, NIME, and Power BI. We've got some nice demo around the use of transaction code data within the Dataiku environment, which suits, if you say, current world and new world SAP. We also have a demo later on in the session looking at working with SAP Fiori apps within Dataiku, which addresses the current new world of SAP, particularly SAP S/4HANA in its various iterations. We'll also have a demo focused around working with BW data, and we have another demo focused around the extraction of SAP table level data as well. And then we'll finish off with a quick view of what we've got coming in terms of our roadmap for our connector with Dataiku. Next slide, please, Ian. And the next one. Okay. Now look at these handsome chaps here. This is me on the left. I did ask the photographer for soft focus. They went blur instead. So that's me, Darren Walton, with my contact details to the left there. Ian always looks angry, but he's actually nicer than he looks. There's his contact details there. So the are the 2 voices you'll hear on the session today. So feel free to contact or follow up with us at any point after the session. Yeah, next one, please. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so as I mentioned in the introduction there, we have, I know some of our names I recognize using our Alteryx, NIME, and Power BI products. So these are products we all currently support from a SAP data integration perspective. Thanks for the holiday picture, Ian. In addition to Power BI, we also work with Tableau, in the sort of visualization space. In the data blending, I've mentioned Alteryx, I mentioned NIME, I mentioned Dataiku, and also for cloud data warehouses, we also do work with Snowflake, and we'll be looking to extend the products that we support as time progresses. Next one, please. Okay, so here's a key slide here. I mentioned in the introduction there SAP ECC, SAP S/4HANA, SAP BW. Essentially, any of the SAP products that would run on the ABAP stack are supported today by our Dataiku Connector product. So this could be late old R3. I know some of you will still refer to your SAP systems as R3. SAP ECC, where the bulk of the SAP user community still sits. And then we have the different flavors of SAP S/4HANA. So ultimately, we don't care if it's on-premise S/4HANA, whether it's the public cloud S/4HANA or the private cloud S/4HANA, wrapped around RISE or Grow for SAP. We support those products fully today. In the analytics space, we work with all the various iterations of BW, the business warehouse product. So it could be old school BW right through to SAP BW for HANA. We have SAP Analytics Cloud support coming pretty soon. In the planning space, we work with BPC and the cloud version of that, IBP. We work with the whole, let's say, legacy business suite applications, so the old SAP CRM, old SAP SCM, which still have large user communities around the world, and the various industry solutions as well. So you're very well catered for in the same way as you are with our Alteryx product, our NIME product, our Power BI product, and so on and so forth. We do have upcoming developments and releases of this product that will work then with SuccessFactors, Ariba, and sometime next year SAP Concur as well, along with the various customer experience-based solutions as well. But today we address the majority of the SAP market with our ECC S/4HANA BW capabilities. Yeah, next one, please. All right, so we have a nice alignment. So we don't really mind what deployment of Dataiku you've chosen with the organization. We support it, both private cloud and public cloud. The functionality offered in both domains is the same, so it's no distinction at all there. Next one, please, Ian. Okay, great. So I whipped along there because I'm very keen for you to see what this looks like within the Dataiku environment. So we're going to run our first demo, or Ian's going to run the first demonstration, where we're talking about T codes, transaction codes within the SAP environment. And the beauty of utilizing transaction codes directly, of course, is that I don't have to worry about the business logic, rebuild that business logic from the SAP transaction within the Dataiku environment. We execute the transaction, we consume that fully. So what we found with our support for our other platforms, Alteryx 9, Power BI, and so on, that this is a real key capability for a lot of our business users who don't need to know about the data model within the SAP system. They just know there's a particular report or transaction code that they want to run. Over to you, Ian.
Okay, thank you. So let's switch into the live system. Cross your fingers for me. So this is a live demo. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully very, very well. You can see we're in Dataiku, and just to show you how this works and how it all hangs together. Basically, everything's built from within Dataiku. So obviously, I've got my zone here within Dataiku, and within my recipes, because I've got the add-in on my instance, on my Dataiku instance for DVW, I have this extra possibility here. When I click on here, I get a whole bunch of different objects, if you like, SAP objects within the system or systems that I can use, and I'll just scroll down these relatively quickly because I know Darren's going to talk to these a little bit in a short while. But as we said, we're going to look at running a T code from within Dataiku. So when I choose that part of the recipe, I can then set the data set up. We'll just call it tcode_webinar. And when I create the data set, it's going to actually bring me into a wizard. And this wizard technically actually sits, as again we'll show you in a little while, on the middleware, the DVW middleware, which is what we call the XCS console. X for cross, so a cross connector for SAP. Is a console where we hold all these connections. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But as you can see, once I'm in my T code, I get the possibility to choose the different systems I have set up. So obviously, I have quite a few different demo systems, and they reflect the systems that Darren has just mentioned. But I'm going to just start in ECC, and then I can run a transaction code. Now I can actually run a program or report. Same difference, but let's run a T code. When I run the T code, it's going to go talk to my ECC system and check that it's correct T code. Of course, log me on because I've embedded my SAP credentials within the console. Obviously, they're super safe, double encrypted. But it runs the T code, and as you can see, it gives me the parameter screen for FBL3N. If you know FBL3N, it's a finance T code, so you get in obviously things like company code and GL account, dates, even the layout somewhere down here. There it is, the layout that I might want to use. I can enter here manually if I wish, so I can enter some values and go run the T code as if it were in the SAP GUI. Equally, I can, and when you're doing a demo, it's a lot quicker to say, hey, let's use a variant, because the variant, of course, is a set of save parameters. When I click on there, then it's taking me to design that. But I just want to show you, just to show you what that there are values in there. I can bring those values across from SAP so that I can see them here. but also I can manipulate them here. Of course, I could change this. Now when I go to design, I can run this. And this is all within the build. So we haven't actually built out the Dataiku workflow. We're actually within the tool itself, within the recipe, designing how our output is going to look. And that's important because, as you can see, now that we've run this T code, in typical SAP style, it's a great endpoint. It gives you the information you want. For every combination of general ledger and company code, I get a table of results, table of line items, some totals, and then it goes on to the next combination, etc., etc. Now, anybody who's familiar with this or similar sort of T codes in SAP will be used to the fun of downloading this to Excel, manipulating it, for several hours usually, to maybe get these header values so that they're part of the data, to recognize each of the different headers. There are many of them, of course, because there are many little tables in here. And also maybe, hey, I don't want these totals rows in there. They're just going to get in the way. I can consolidate later in Dataiku, of course. Well, that's all done for us here, because in this solution, there's intelligence built in, and it's looked at this output and it's recognized in pink here that these are header values. You can see it's picked up the technical GL account and the company code. It's also highlighted the text that goes alongside that GL. Now, maybe I don't want the text. I'm quite happy with the code, so I could turn this off. So it's totally manipulatable. It's totally configurable, and we can pick and choose what we want. However, most of it has been picked up. You'll see that the dashes and the spaces have been ignored. They're in grey. The headers are all in yellow. It sees that as a header, and it's noticed that it's the same for each of these little mini tables. So it's recognized where the headers sit. And also it's recognized that there's a totals row here, and it's ignoring it. It's going to exclude that. I can change that if I wish, but I'm quite happy with all this configuration. I'm going to preview. So we're going from this state of play, the way that SAP has it, to the way that we want it. And this is with literally the click of 2 buttons. You can see that the GL account and the company code have their own columns. All the other values are parsed nicely. All the extras have gone. And this is data that we can use straight away in analytics without several hours of playing around in Excel. So we can confirm this design. We can even at this point, let's do that. We can even at this point ignore maybe some of these values, because we saw that these columns weren't populated. And I can even still in here, I can run the T code and apply all that configuration just to check that what's coming out is exactly as I want. What's cool then is I just save. That configuration that is built in to the recipe that sits within Dataiku now. So there's a recipe in Dataiku that holds all that work. What it's doing is it's going to talk back to SAP. So when I come back and that's saved, I can now run this, build the workflow. And when I build the workflow, it calls back to SAP at this point and gets the data that's there right now. It's running the T code. It's doing all that work. And as you can see, before I can even think about finishing speaking, it's already done the work. And if I explore that, we can see here's my data from the T code over in Dataiku. And it really is as simple as that. Darren, back to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Ian. And so hopefully you'll agree that this is within the Dataiku environment. It's a great game changer for business users who want particular transaction codes. They only need data from a handful of transaction codes, perhaps. They don't need to worry about delving into different tables. And what's really nice here is that all that business logic built into that T code within the SAP environment is automatically available to us. We just need to consume it and bring it into the Dataiku platform. Okay, next slide, please, Ian. So what we've shown you there then is one of the key capabilities of the product, the ability to extract data from SAP transaction codes, ABAP reports. And I should emphasize that the types of transaction codes and ABAP reports referred to here are those that deliver a report type output. Right, so we're not using VAO1s to create sales orders or MMO2s to look at material master records. It's the type of reports, T codes that deliver report type of output. But it's also worth mentioning as well is we're not just talking about standard SAP T codes and reports here. We're also custom ones that you've built or your teams have developed within your own SAP environment. So these could be our Z reports, Z T codes, these types of things. Okay, so T codes, reports, I've waxed lyrical about that long enough. The other extreme then would be our table data. So we want to be able to access our table level data within the SAP environment. Our users, particularly in audit, tax, finance, those sort of domains, really love the granularity of this. You do need to know which SAP tables the data resides within. But this is the finest level of granularity you're going to get of data in any SAP system. So it's kind of the contrasting capability to the T-code ABAP report capability. And when I mention tables here, what I should emphasize is that in our product for Dataiku, in fact, with all our products, when we access data from SAP tables, we are connecting to those tables via what's called the SAP application layer. Ian will talk about it in a few slides' time. But the key thing I want to get across here is the way we connect to SAP is in a very regimented, very clean, very safe manner. We operate via the SAP application layer, which means that all the governance and controls built into the SAP system are automatically respected by our software. The authorizations built in are respected by our software. So as a user, you can do no harm to the SAP environment. And as a user, you can only access that data that you're authorized to access within that particular environment. So tables, T-codes, headlines. BW is still used very significantly. When we first started working in this domain, the software domain a few years ago, BW is probably the number one source of data for most of our users across the products that we support. Over time, it's becoming less and less, but still a key capability and a key product that we integrate with. So we have the ability to integrate directly and very effectively with SAP BW queries and query views, all the various different types of info provider, BW hierarchies, which are able to extract and present for use within Dataiku in a nice flat tabular format. Right, so all that capability is available to you. In the new world, if we move into SAP S/4HANA or running BW for HANA or on HANA, then HANA views become a capability that's going to be interesting for us to work with, and we support access to various SAP S/4HANA CDS views, calculation views, analytic views, and so on and so forth. So as you migrate your SAP landscape onto the newer SAP products, you actually unlock even more capability within our product set rather than less as you move to it. Coming soon, we have capabilities around access to data through BAPIs and RFC-enabled function modules. We currently have this within our outer exposed products, and we're starting to move this and make this capability available to our other products as well. So that'll be coming relatively soon. Again, in the S/4HANA world, doesn't matter, again, if we're talking S/4HANA on-premise, S/4HANA private cloud, with or without RISE, S/4HANA public cloud, with or without Grow, excuse me. Fiori apps are the way in which users start to interact with the SAP environment, and we have the ability to extract data through those Fiori apps, and that becomes very powerful given the huge library of Fiori apps that are available. And also, maybe less sexy, the SAP spool. The SAP spool is an alternative that many of our customers will use as alternative to making use of our T-code ABAP report capability. So if you imagine an SAP system, in the old days, we used to print things all the time. So we'd write the output of a print job to the SAP spool, and from there it would be physically printed. What we can do is we're actually able to hook into that spool, grab the data, and bring it into the Dataiku environment. So these are some of the key capabilities we have available today for the extraction of data from SAP, and with the BAPI and the RFC-enabled function modules, two key capabilities that will be added in the very short term. Ian?
Thank you. I guess I'll take over here.
Yep.
All mine. So on the back of that, obviously lots of possibilities there in terms of different SAP objects that we can connect to. Let's show you another one. This one, as you can read, is around BW. But it's also to show you how we can control the data that's extracted from SAP directly from Dataiku. So we've got a lot more flexibility than you may think. Let's just switch into back to Dataiku and back to my flow. Okay, let's find number 2. Oh, of course, I can't find it. There it is. Get there eventually. Sorry about that. Okay, so we've got some filters here. We'll come back to that in a second, but let's just build something off a BW query. As we said, we've got lots of tools here. One is the BW tool here. You can see that, as Darren mentioned there, we can pull data from a query. Indeed, not just from a query, but info objects and maybe multi-cubes, DSOs, etc., all sorts of objects within BW. But also we can pull the extraneous objects like texts and hierarchies through into Dataiku for use here in the nice flat, easy to use format. So I click the right one. Okay, so let's do a query and just create it. Very similar to what you've just seen when we created the T code. It's going to connect to my system. Obviously, I want a BW system this time. And then I can select the object that I'm interested in. Those of you that are familiar with BW already will recognize the sort of the headers here, history, favorites, folders. These are exactly the same as you'd expect there. And indeed, in here you can see that we can look at query views, we can look at queries themselves, even info providers, as I mentioned, cubes, DSOs, multi-providers, etc. In all of our tools, you can turn on technical names if you wish. As you can see, we've been very inventive in our test queries here, so it's good to know this. And it's this first one that I want, so I'm going to click on it here and confirm. What that does obviously is go off to BW, and it brings back the filters that are needed, as well as the selections, i.e. the characteristics and key figures that are available in that query, as designed by your BW team. You can see some of them are already chosen, but I don't need to use those, and indeed I can pick whichever other ones in here that are interesting to me. So let's pick a few. What's also nice is that if I open partner number here, you can see I can look at the attributes of partner number. So I can bring in master data about partner number 2. So if I bring these in, then it gives me extra detail. I can take a value here, and if I wish, I can filter on it. So as well as the variables that are sitting in there, again, they're designed by the query designer, by your BW team. I can add as many other filters as I wish. And indeed, all of these we can click on here, and in theory, you can tell it's live. We'll come back to that. Let's just work through it. I'm sure I'll work that out now in a second. But let's just go through. You can filter on those, and the last thing that's interesting is you can also get text. So if there are texts available for a given characteristic, then we can come into here and we can pick the one that's interesting to us. You can see the 3 possibilities at maximum. They're not always maintained, but if there are, then we can use them. Let's go back to those filters. Let's start at the top then. So in terms of these first 3 in here, what we have is the ability, the variables that have been set up for us. We can look at just equal a single value, or we can do the usual sort of greater than, less than, etc., or even between. And let's just try again. Let's hope this works a little better than the first time. There we go. And we can pick, as you can see, from BW from values that are available. So if I click on here, then it's going to populate that. Equally, I can just, if I know a value, I can type it in. And as I said, we can add a filter. It might be happier this time once we've filled one of those in. Transaction type. Okay, so let's put a transaction type in here, and then let's preview the data that we get. So this is now going to run the query, bring back the characteristics we want as headers, and obviously the data that's interesting to us, and hopefully it should be filtered in the way we expect. So we can see here that the transaction type is filtered. Equally, we're going to get the partner numbers we're interested in. Remember, we had transactional data. Let's just save this and run it in while I'm talking. We had the attributes added into there. We also wanted those. With me, just build it here. We also wanted the data for the text available in there, and if we just let that run, then when we explore, we can see, look, here are those attributes available in my data. So that's extra master data for free if you like. And also we brought in those texts. Here they are. So we've got those long texts against each of our products. So we can again use the power of BW to enhance our data set here. Now that's sort of similar, I guess, to what we did with the transaction code. As I said, look, we've got this extra piece here. I've already uploaded some filters, okay? And what this enables you to do is to control what happens within the tool, the recipe, if you like, but from externally, okay? So instead of just having that one transaction type, what I'm going to do is add this filter and get it to run for 3 different transaction types. Another feature of the system is that we can split that. So we can, instead of having one huge call, which can sometimes cause problems if we get into tens of millions of rows, maybe we can make too big a call. We can break that down. We can use split to break it down into 3 single calls of slightly smaller size, of course, and make it more palatable for the SAP system. Really easy to set up. Within my recipe, I can say, hey, look, I've got a filter table here. This is my transaction types. I'm going to add that in as an input. Once I've done that, then when I go back to my flow, you can see it's connected up and it's going to pass those filters in. And indeed now, when I build, then it's going to build not just for 1 transaction type, it's going to build for 3. It's done that already. Let's explore. And if I look at my types here, I can look at the filters, and of course it's not working properly for some reason, or maybe we haven't got the whole data set. But the idea is that it will across all of those 3 different types. Okay, I think I'm going to carry on with the next section, Darren. Yeah, so
Yeah, go for
we're
it.
just going to talk about the integration then, and slightly more. It's taken on from the last picture that we saw Darren present in terms of the way everything hangs together. And you will have noticed that there are sort of three parts to this. There's the Dataiku, obviously, add-in, which is the Dataiku Connector for SAP, sitting within your instance of Dataiku, which connects to our console. All those connections are sitting in that console, and then obviously SAP. If we start at the top, though, if we think about how a user normally connects into SAP, maybe via the SAP GUI or Analysis for Office, they use the standard RFC libraries within which are downloaded and available on their machine. That's just standard SAP to connect into SAP via RFC. And as Darren mentioned, we always go as a paradigm via the application server. This gives us those safety belts and the authorizations that we have already embedded as a technically by your SAP IT team to protect your SAP system, but gives us access to all the functionality that you've seen and more to come. We do that from Dataiku slightly differently because obviously we're not sitting on your PC. Dataiku sits in the cloud, so we talk from your PC to Dataiku via the browser, of course. And we can then build our workflows, including the DCS tools, to build the connections that you've seen us building already, whether it be BW codes or, as you'll see, tables, Fiori apps, etc., and call those and control them from Dataiku. Once they're called, the XCS console does the work that your SAP GUI would. It uses the same RFC standard libraries to connect via RFC into SAP. So very standard, very safe, very secure. We can do no harm. Just a little bit more about the capabilities. You can, like with other Dataiku flows, we can automate that, so we can schedule those flows to run so that the Dataiku flow runs, but it calls the XCS console to go get up-to-date data from SAP and pull it into Dataiku ready for you to use. We can cover off single sign-on, so if your organization uses single sign-on rather than username and password, then that's fine too. Deltas are possible, so we can extract data that is obviously new data, newly landed data, if you like, in SAP. That's fine. And as we've said, we respect all those controls, the governance around authorizations and SAP safety belts. We fully respect all of that and apply it. No need to build a new authorizations model, for instance. Okay, this slide's a bit busy, but it's just explaining what's going to happen on the next demonstration. This is the idea here is to look at table data, so obviously the granular data within SAP. Again, it's finance, but it could be any business area within SAP. And the two tables we're talking about, you can see them in the middle here. Well, actually, I've already built it. So a connection to the BKPF table, which is basically the main finance header table, and also the finance line item table. And obviously, the two are connected. One header for many line items usually. Okay, they're two separate tables, but notoriously difficult, and it's a very common setup, this header and one or more line item or segment tables which are connected to it. It's very common for SAP. Really easy, however, using Dataiku to pull exactly the data you want in a very efficient way. This is how it works, okay? So I'll show you this in a second, but again, just as you've seen just now, we can upload a filter list. We can use that filter list to apply filters from within Dataiku to bring back exactly the data we want from our connection on BKPF. Obviously, when we call that, it's going to talk to SAP and bring the data back into Dataiku. Now, what's really tricky if you don't have something like Dataiku to do the work and the DVW tools, is to then pull the correct line items that correspond to your headers from SAP. So what we can do is we can use the data that we've just extracted from BKPF to create a list of filters. And so when we go to BSEG, the line item table, we're pulling back just the line items that correspond to the headers that we've already extracted. So we're being very precise, very surgical, and we're pulling that data back. And then finally, we join that to get the full financial view. Let's have a look at that in Dataiku. Here we are. So this is what it looks like. Obviously, slightly more complex workflow, but nothing too mind-blowing. You can see here my filters. These are an interesting set of filters, and it's good this demonstration actually because it shows the two ways you can filter. You can use a filter table like this, and we can say, look, hey, for this year, bring back this company code data, and for these years, bring back this company code data. And so these filters can be really complex and convoluted, if you like. The reason we can do that is because we have this group ID here. And what happens is it breaks down the calls. So what the tool does is it looks at group one of filters and applies them as a whole. So it will only bring back company code 1000 for years 2019 and 2020. Once it's done that, it then moves on to group 2 and brings back these. So we can get really complex on how we apply the filters. Okay, so this is a really cool way of applying the filters. When we do that, you can see that from our table data, we pull back the headers that we're interested in. Okay, now, as before, there's not a lot of difference between what we've seen on T code or BW. With a table, it's the same type of principle. Okay, same type of front end. We get from our BKPF table via the tool the metadata, the columns in that table. We can choose the ones we're interested in, and we can set filters as we wish. Now, these filters are obviously hard coded, if you like, but we're going to overwrite them because we're passing that input in, and we're going to get exactly the data that we're interested in. If we step back, then we can see we've pulled out the data, the headers that we're interested in. It's only for the combinations of filters that we said. And the next step is then to say, hey, let's prepare the filters for the BSEG. Now, this is really easy because you've got Dataiku. You've got the power of Dataiku to say, hey, what are these filters? Well, the filters we need, and I've already run this, so I'll show you, are company code, year, and document number. Those three combination, in each combination, will give us the data that we need. So we're using our header to create filters. Notice the setup of this filter is different. It's not a more formal table. It's just saying, hey, give me this data. We can pass data like this also into the tools, and all our tools do this. So we're passing it into the recipe for BSEG, extracting the line items we want, which you can see are here. And then finally, again, we're back in Dataiku. So we're looking to make a join. We're going to join all those headers to the exact line items we need because we've been very surgical. We've only pulled out the line items we want. And then finally, we get the full picture of our SAP postings. Headers on the left, joined to their respective line items or segment table data on the right. Okay, back to Darren.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. That was a good demo. And I think what's important about that last example there, where we're showing data being extracted from SAP tables, that pattern Ian showed you. This is applicable for finance, which is the example we use there. It applies all the different functional areas across SAP because SAP fundamentally uses a document-based concept for transactions. So there's a header and there's items and maybe sub-items, but the pattern we have of capturing data from a header, so we're only pulling the data we require, being very effective and efficient in the way we interact with the SAP system, and then only feeding in through filters the data that we extracted at that high level to select the connected or common appropriate item level details as well. So very powerful pattern, which is again it's applicable across all objects, table-based objects across the SAP system. Okay, so let's have a little bit of chat about S/4HANA then. This is kind of the new world. We're finding that our customers are gradually moving or starting to move, some more quickly than others. And as I mentioned from the outset, there are different deployment options for SAP S/4HANA. Different companies will have different reasons for using certain options. When SAP S/4HANA is first out, then it's kind of the traditional on-premise sort of deployment. And then we have deployments of SAP S/4HANA within Azure or AWS and sort of cloud-based. And then over probably the last couple of years, SAP has been, let's say, a little bit more aggressive in terms of positioning these S/4HANA private and public cloud editions where the software itself is hosted on SAP infrastructure. Right, so you may hear words RISE in the context of SAP S/4HANA. This is really referring to predominant product is the Cloud Private Edition. The SAP S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition is effectively, and I don't want to dumb it down too much, but basically it is on-prem S/4HANA with all the same capabilities hosted by SAP on SAP infrastructure. There are some restrictions, but basically that's what it is. And you may hear it used alongside the word RISE, which is effectively like a methodology of sorts. So given that, essentially no real different from on-prem. So all the capabilities we offer are open to our customers who use SAP S/4HANA on-premise, SAP S/4HANA hosted in Azure or AWS, and SAP S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition. It's an SAP system, as you know, and as good or as bad as that, according to how you feel about things. So what this means from a capability perspective is all the functionality that we offer for Dataiku, the product, is fully available within the private edition there. For smaller businesses, SAP have a Cloud Public Edition. Most of our customers tend to be large enterprises, so very few will be using the Cloud Public Edition. This is still SAP S/4HANA, but has more of a wrapper around it. So what you can do as a customer is a lot more restricted, and therefore still we have capabilities, but they're a little bit restricted because of the way in which the product has been architected. And for that, we're really looking at because of consumption of Fiori apps. We're looking at consumption of OData services, these types of things, as a means of extracting data from the SAP environment into Dataiku. So don't be alarmed if you hear these terms being bandied around within your organizations, particularly in the context of RISE or GROW. It's all much of a muchness really at the technical level. But private edition is fully fledged SAP. Public edition is fully fledged SAP with a wrapper that offers some restrictions to you as a customer, and therefore DVW as an integration company. And then what this means, thank you, Ian, thank you, Ian, is that different deployments of SAP and different deployments of of Dataiku we fully support. Okay, so we're pretty much on board with any deployment of Dataiku and SAP out there. So again, don't be alarmed if you hear some of these terms being bandied around. We don't really care if it's HANA Cloud, SAP ECC up there in the cloud somewhere, on-prem, and likewise with the different Dataiku variants as well. We can, as long as we have a little pinhole to connect those systems, we can integrate with them very, very effectively and give you the capabilities that you're looking for from our kind of software that we offer. Next slide, please, Ian.
I think it's over to me. Sorry, I'm
over to
nudging
you again,
you on there, wasn't I?
Yeah, I'll shut up.
So last demo. This time it's about Fiori apps. I think what we'll do is actually just show you Fiori app. Why not? If you're not familiar with it, HANA systems have thousands of these things built in. So if we just run one of these, you'll see. Quickly log on. Quickly, if my internet allows me. Then basically these are apps that connect into your S/4HANA system. As I say, there are thousands of standard ones, and many companies will have their own modified versions. But basically, you can filter, as you can see, company code in year or whatever is appropriate, and you'll get out a data set. We can hook into this data. Basically, it's pretty easy actually. There are one of two forms. Either they're an OData service, as this case is, or what you've already seen, actually a BW query. If you've got a shiny new HANA system, then hidden in there is a BW system waiting to be used. And again, with hundreds of standard BW queries that can be used. In terms of getting a view of where that is, and an overview maybe, if we look at the SAP Fiori reference library, we get an idea just how many of these things there are. If we go to all apps, you can see there literally are thousands of these things. Well, 16,000, okay, of all sorts of different types of data, different formats, etc., etc. If we search for our one, then we can see there's our invoices list for our suppliers. You get to know all about it. Now, what's nice in here is they even give you a little bit of the configuration, and here's that OData service I was mentioning. Okay, so if you need to find out details of it, there it is. Maybe BW query, as I said, but either way, we can connect into it. Now, if we go back to Dataiku, then when we go back to our now familiar recipes with DVW, then you can see we've got a HANA Cloud Read. So this represents those Fiori apps. Again, we just need to give it a name. Fiori Webinar. Create that data set. And again, we're flicking across and creating that connection that sits on the XCS console. You can see it's recognized that it's looking for an S4 system, so it's only our S4 systems that are available here. But when I click on here to connect to a service, that OData service, I get all those that are available, those 16,000. But there's nice functionality here to search, so I could go supplier if I wanted and go find it. It's going to give me the list with supplier. Equally, if I know the name, which I do, I get just the one I want. When I click on here, there are different options, different outputs to experiment with. The help ones actually give you additional values, additional master data that relates to the main one, which is the one in the middle here. Okay, so again, it's worth playing, worth seeing how you can enhance your data set within Dataiku. When I select the OData service, then again, it's a familiar screen by now. You've seen it, so it gives us the metadata of this particular service, this OData service. I can select exactly the values that I'm interested in. I can add maybe some text if I wish. You'll notice at the top there are these things called expand nodes. Those relate to that help, which gives you extra values, extra attributes for these particular things like company code, etc. So we can add those into the output, and we can choose exactly what we're looking for to come out of here. I guess we want a value. As with all our tools, we can filter. So I can add a new filter and I can search for that, or if I remembered, it was 1710. Equally, I can add maybe a calendar year if I can see that. God, there is fiscal year 2020, I think it was, if I remember rightly. And we can really be flexible about exactly what we want in. If I preview, then when I refresh, I'm going to get the data and check it's in the right format. If I'm happy with it, I save. And once I've saved, once I go back to my flow, I can build this. And as you can see, within a minute or two, you can have that Fiori data available for you within, there it is, within Dataiku. So you can connect that and make that an integral part of your flows within Dataiku. Like all the other tools, we can control that upstream by passing filters into it, so we don't have to just stick to those fixed values in inverted commas. We can be much more dynamic, much more flexible, because we can pass filters from Dataiku into the tool to get exactly the data we want. And that could be a list of company codes, as we see here, or years, or even a calculation using Dataiku to work out what today's date is. You'll get today's data for me, or the last 90 days. So really flexible, really great tool, and a good way of getting your HANA data available for you very quickly and ready to use in your analytics. Darren, back to you.
Thanks, Ian. That's great. So far we've shown you T-code data, Fiori data, we've shown you BW data and SAP table data. So kind of the big four in the modern world. We're continuing to develop the product set, and if you just flash forward for me, please. Thank you. The sort of capabilities we have today. As I mentioned earlier, the BAPIs and RFC enabled function modules are coming very soon now. OData more broadly, which will support products such as SuccessFactors and Ariba and the like, is coming early 2025. But I think maybe what's more exciting for Dataiku customers is that the right capability is coming soon as well. We have it today within some of our other product sets, but we're busy building out this at the moment. The key capabilities are going to be really around BAPIs and IDOCs and even RPA type of applications as well. So RPA being where we record scripts via the SAP GUI or maybe a Fiori app. we parameterize those within the Dataiku platform, and we let those run as part of the output of the Dataiku flow. So lots of interesting things coming along, but today the product is pretty complete and addresses most use cases, will address most requirements for various use cases our customers want to work with. Ian, just forward one more thing, please. Was it two more? Yeah, perfect. All right, so this brings us to the end of our session here. We hope you found it very useful. We will follow up with you with the video, warts and all. There's live demos, the Curtis live demo, but we did very well, I think, hopefully. So thanks, Ian, for that. What we would like to offer all of you who actually attended the live session today, if you're interested, is an extended 60-day trial of this product within your environments. Kick the tires, see how you feel it works, explore it to its fullest extent. And we'll be following up with you also with more information, videos, etc., about the product set as we progress things. So let's maybe wrap it there. Thank you very much for your attention. Feel free to contact myself or Ian directly, but we will be in touch with you over the next few days.